What's good, y'all? Let's talk about this Fury versus Wilder trilogy, the ending of a saga that lasted from, let's say, 2018 all the way up to 2021. It's had a lot of spills, it's had its controversies, it's had its stories, a lot of drama, and it finally ended on Saturday. But in a very intriguing fight, very entertaining. Now we'll talk about whether it was competitive or like how everyone wants to compare it to the great fights, but I was thoroughly entertained overall. And so far we're going to talk about a lot of stuff, you know what I mean, like the aftermath, what goes on from here, like where do both of these guys go? Uh where does the heavyweight division like turn to? So let's talk about it round by round. And it to me it was very similar to the second fight's aesthetic, except for the first portion of the fight, because I did think that Wilder was doing a little bit better in the first portion of the fight, first round. But the issue was like him just sticking with the jab to the body, but the thing was like okay, it looked nice, but where was the substance with it? You know what I mean? Like, where was the follow ups to attacking the body? Like I was expecting like a straight right hand to the body, following up from that jab to the body. And I didn't really see any of that. And then he just abandoned it later on in the fight. But even if he did bring it back, there wasn't anything to follow up on it. And I think that Fury would have found that out a little bit more than just him like going at it with Fury, you know what I mean, throwing his flurries like how he always did in all of their fights. But I would say I didn't really like score the fight that much. I was just like watching it for the sake of watching it, because like both of these guys like have put each other on the canvas multiple times, and you just don't know like whether a scorecard would matter or not, and it really didn't, to be honest, at the very end. So let me see. When I looked at the knockdowns, they were very similar to uh well, Fury's knockdown specifically of Deontay Wilder. It was kind of similar like to the second fight, but Wilder knocked down Fury very similar to the first fight, you know what I mean? And I'm talking about the second knockdown. Because like Fury looked like he was a little dazed from it and stuff. And it was pretty different, this time around. Like both of these guys were actually like flooring each other. And Wilder had a decent game plan at the very beginning, but it wasn't really that big of a change, like from the same thing that he always does every fight. But sorry about that, guys. Like I was too distracted with something right now. But the injuries that Wilder sustained like during the fight, I thought it was like from him using a puncher's glove rather than him like sustaining an injury during camp. And maybe like he was talking about that, but to me it looked like it was from that one because Wilder did agree to sustaining a hand injury to uh like gloves that he would use in the past, but that's when he started switching back to gloves that were, like a lot more pro like hand for him, you know what I mean? Because like he says that the hand reps would be way too tight for his fist to the point where like every time that he loads up a power shot, it would just shake up his entire hand. And I know how that feels, because I've hit the bag before where the hand reps are like too tight and stuff. But the thing was he agreed to having like his gloves being MX and stuff like that. And like how Everlast has those MX gloves. Well, I mean, that's what caused him, during the fight and stuff, hand injuries. But that still doesn't change the fact that Fury came back after those knockdowns, and proceeded to actually like making this fight look like the second fight, but looked a little longer to me. It almost looked like Fury was carrying him a little bit because, like how Fury, how like how Wilder was like saying all this stuff to Fury like and during the build up, the whole drama, all of that other stuff. That's what I thought. But when I look at Malik Scott's coaching, I was pretty unimpressed to be honest. Like it sounded good in the build up, but it had no special effects. Because when I was looking at Malik Scott giving Deontay advice, like there's so much that Deontay like could take in, you know what I mean? At this point of his career, like he's a much older individual, and like there's stuff that he's just not gonna do. You know what I mean? You can't really teach an old dog new tricks, especially one that's already set in his ways. Like like most of these old fighters, you know what I mean? Everyone was kind of especially me, to be honest, man. They had me convinced, like they're real. I'm not gonna lie, Wilder and his team are real good at convincing people to believe in them. You know what I mean? They had me kind of convinced a little bit. It almost made me change my prediction from Fury to Wilder for a second. I thought Fury was gonna win by like a split decision. You know what I mean? Because I thought Wilder was gonna come in with this brand new skill set and actually give Fury problems, but I still thought that Fury was gonna edge it either ways. But the issue was, man, like Wilder just can't do it, man. Like Wilder is always just gonna be going back to his old ways. There's not really gonna change. It's not really gonna change much because, like, really, he has a lot of fundamental flaws. Like, he keeps his head on the center line a lot, and I've heard various people that know about boxing like actually describe that as well. You know what I mean? They're not just fans of Fury or detractors of Wilder. Like they're actually like giving their own honest breakdown and intellectual opinion. You know what I mean? Like it's just what it is. Like Wilder has his flaws, and some of them are like it. That ship has sailed basically. Like for him to do any type of improvement. Sorry, y'all. I had to take I had to clear my throat. But what's up, Monkey Kung Fu? He says, I feel like Fury wasn't as motivated for the fight, almost as if he took Wilder lightly to a certain degree. Exactly, man, exactly. And here's the thing. I was hearing reports that Fury only trained for this fight for 3 weeks. If that's true, man, oh man. Oh my god, man. That would look bad on Deontay. I'm not gonna lie. Cause all of the stuff that I was hearing about Fury this entire time were sounding like real low spirit for me. You know what I mean? For me to believe that he would actually win the fight. But I still stuck with Fury. You know what I mean? Like Fury has always won fights that I've always picked him in. Like it was real hard to root against him. But back to the point of Malik Scott coaching. Like after this, man, like I don't want to see Malik Scott coach another fighter anymore. Cause to me, it's not really that like at the championship level. I mean, like I'm not saying that Malik Scott should stop coaching overall, period, but like I don't think he's prepared for the championship level, in my opinion. You know what I mean? But then Fury like carried Wilder, and all of a sudden the knockout finally happened in the 11th round. But before that knockout, there was a knockdown as well, obviously. But either ways, man, the overall performance, it was a typical Fury performance, you know what I mean, on Deontay. It looked very similar to the second fight, but the fact that I'm hearing that Fury didn't really take this fight as serious makes me think that if he were taking this fight as serious, and if the reports are true of the three of the 3 week notice, not the 3 week notice, but the 3 week training period. Wow, man, like it makes me think that he would have taken out Wilder maybe in that fifth round. You know what I mean? The first time that he knocked down Wilder, and he probably would have capitalized on that for sure. So, overall, man, like I didn't really think that Fury would end it like that. You know what I mean? Like I thought it would be a split decision because, like I said before, like Team Wilder is very convincing. You know what I mean? They have a way of saying stuff that makes me believe like what they're saying. You know what I mean? But I still stuck with my prediction with Tyson Fury, man, because Tyson Fury, it's real hard to root against the guy, like I've said before, because like this guy boxes well. This guy knows how to use his size on all of the heavyweights compared to all of them, actually, man. Because this is what uh Anthony Joshua should have followed the blueprint on. Like if he were facing Alexander Usyk, if he were facing even Andy Ruiz, he should have started putting his size on them. You know, just like how Fury did. Fury literally laid the blueprint out there. You know what I mean? And that's because like he's already fought speedy fighters. You know what I mean? Like with like the cruiserweights, he fought Steve Cunningham. Like this guy has learned this lesson like from all of the fights that he's had before, like facing a Vladimir, before facing a Deontay. Well, that's why I picked him against Vladimir, because this guy could box, this guy could stick and move. Like Vladimir hasn't seen that, man. Like he's not used to seeing a boxer like that of that size, like just sticking a jab in his face, like just as good of a jab as he has, you know. And that's how like Tyson Fury dealt with him, and I picked Fury in that fight, and I knew that Fury would win comfortably against Vladimir, and I picked him in all of the fights against Deontay Wilder. Even though I didn't feel as confident in the second and third fight, I still stuck with it. You know what I mean? Because like I said, man, like Fury really knows like he has a very high IQ for a heavyweight. Even though it wouldn't last like in a division, you know, like welterweight or any of those lighter weight classes, it's still enough to beat the heavyweights of today easily, man, easily. All right, y'all, I'm back. So, where do both of these guys go from here? Hmm. Logically, Wilder versus AJ, Fury versus Usyk. First of all, well, let me get to this comment first. Monkey Kung Fu says, well, to put it bluntly, Wilder and his can't really believe their own BS, and putting on that weight was a yes, exactly, man. Exactly. To be honest, man, I was actually gonna do a follow-up video for that weigh-in, because as soon as I heard 238, I'm like, uh-oh, nah, it's done. It is done, man. Like I should have changed it to a knockout, you know what I mean, for Tyson Fury, but as soon as I heard the weight 238, I knew this was gonna be bad. Like putting up all that weight, and I was expecting him to put it like in his legs or anything, but he put it in his entire upper body, and that wasn't the wisest idea ever. You know, like I get it that you want to be muscling in with Tyson Fury, but you also need your legs, man, because like every time that I see you like getting hit with a Tyson Fury shot, you look like you're wobbling all over the place, like one of those like car dealership balloons that I would always see as a kid, or Gumby. But damn, man, to me, like Deontay Wilder really is implementing stuff that he should have implemented with like a different type of trainer. You know what I mean? Rather than a Malik Scott at this point of his career. So I don't know. Like he has a bad assessment of game plans, like for preparing. You know what I mean? Like physically and psychologically too, because he's very emotional. I'm not gonna lie, very emotional. Says, I guess it lends credibility to the heavy cost of man. Man, it's bad, man. You know, it's real bad. But I wanted to get to where do both go from here? You know what I mean? Logically. I think like let's talk about Wilder first, because Wilder, he did land some knockdowns on Tyson Fury. He did hurt him, you know what I mean? He almost took him out in that fourth round or fifth round. I forgot which one of those two rounds it was, but from here, man, I think he should stay active. But to me, his ego won't allow him to fight Anthony Joshua, because Eddie Hearn is going to be the guy dictating the entire terms and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, because if anything, man, like Wilder's gonna want that AJ fight before anything. If he's not gonna get Fury, he's gonna want AJ, whether he wins or loses against Usyk. Because to me, it looks like he's in it for the money at this point of his career. He's already getting up there in age, and I don't think he wants to like put himself like or descend himself, you know what I mean, into like a lower position of fighting guys like Frank Sanchez, Joe Joyce, you know, Michael Hunter, anybody like that. And I think that Wilder should I think he should go for the Joshua fight, but I think he should like not rule out guys like Michael Hunter or Joe Joyce because I would absolutely love those fights because even though Wilder's not the most skilled fighter in the world, he's not the most smart fighter in the world. He still has a lot of will. He still has a lot of power in that hand. He could change any momentum of the fight. You know what I mean? Like that's just what it is. Like nobody can like it. They could hate it. They could love it. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? This guy has a chance to win against anybody. You know what I mean? Just because of the power itself. But for me, my favorite fight would be Joe Joyce because everyone loves comparing this Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder 3 fight to Gotti Ward or Ron Lau versus George Foreman, and not even close, man, not even close. Gotti Ward comparison is a very disrespectful thing to Tyson Fury's skill set and ability, so we're not even gonna discuss that. But Ron Lau versus George Foreman, I don't think they realized that both Ron Lau and George Foreman were renowned dynamic punchers. And I get it, man. Fury is a respectable puncher himself, but he wasn't a dynamic puncher like that, like how Wilder was. And to me, Joe Joyce is a dynamic puncher. So when you put in Joe Joyce versus a Deontay Wilder, now that is the closest thing we could get to a George Foreman versus Ron Lau type of deal in the modern day. And I love Wilder's chances against Joe Joyce because Joe Joyce, man, gets hit a lot. You know what I mean? Like if he ends up eating a right hand or any shots that he ate from Daniel Dubois, man, he could get real hurt no matter what. You know what I mean? And he could take a good punch too, but Wilder has a great determination and will, you know, like he'll end up getting floored no matter what. So, but still keep on coming, of course. So I love that fight for Deontay, but for me, it's either for him. I think he's just gonna go for Andy Ruiz or Anthony Joshua. Money fights, man, essentially for him. But the closest thing that I could see for a next fight, I think is gonna end up being Andy Ruiz, but that's still a dangerous fight, believe it or not, because even before Deontay Wilder lost to Tyson Fury or even like got into the whole saga with Tyson Fury, I always thought Andy Ruiz was kind of dangerous for him because Andy Ruiz has fast hands, you know, he has the size on him, and everybody could compare their athleticisms, but did it matter during his fights with Tyson Fury? No, apparently not, because Tyson Fury ended up knocking him out later in the fights. So I'm just saying. Let me get to this comment real quickly. Monkey Kung Fu says Wilder should take a break, have a get back fight against. I'm not sure. Maybe Andy Ruiz going after AJ. Yeah, man. I think that they're gonna try to set up a fight between him and Andy Ruiz. You know, because that's the most logical option for him right now, since he's under the PBC banner and stuff. I don't really know too much about promotions or anything like that, or like how Wilder's gonna transition into another crossover fight, like how he did with Tyson Fury over there at Top Rank. But I would love to see him fight Joe Joyce most of all. But I wouldn't mind seeing him against Frank Sanchez or you know, just different like types of fighters, or even F.A. Ajagba. You know what I mean? Like, cause F.A. Ajagba lost, and I lost that prediction, believe it or not. Wow, man. You know, but Wilder should really reassess himself, you know, like with the losses against Tyson Fury, he should reassess like his skill set, his training, all of that, and like what he needs to do at this point of his career. And he really needs to get his ears checked, man, because the bleeding, I saw that it was happening during the fight and didn't look too good. You know what I mean? If that's gonna be a reoccurring thing, he should really check that out, in my opinion. So, excuse me. Uh That's what I think about it for Deontay Wilder. But Fury, man, where does Fury go from here? Because like you could barely even read this guy. This guy, man, Tyson Fury is like the hardest guy to read in the history of boxing. Like you don't know what this guy is gonna do. You don't know if this guy's gonna stay, make a title defense, or if he's gonna drop the belt, or if he's gonna go for the franchise status. You don't know if he's gonna retire just on this win. You know what I mean? Like, or he's just gonna become undisputed with Usyk, which I would love to see. But then he also has a mandatory between this Otto Wallen and Dillian White fight, so that's gonna be interesting to see like what he does. You know, like I think he's just gonna wait to see if AJ will beat Usyk, but the chances are that AJ might not make any type of adjustments because that's what a lot of people think. You know what I mean? That uh, Usyk just has his number, like he's just a better boxer, and based on what I saw, man, it's gonna be tough for AJ to overcome that. You know, this is gonna be a make or break fight for him at the top level. You know, but once, anyways, like for AJ, man, like he really needs to win this Usyk fight like real badly now. You know, because if he wins it, that's when I think that the Tyson Fury versus AJ fight is very inevitable. You know. And I don't know, like if Tyson Fury sticks around or not, but I would hope he does because I love his chances against Usyk. It's real hard to see like anybody beat Tyson Fury at this point, even from the cruiserweights that are coming up. Their best cruiserweight, Usyk, man. Like it's real hard for me to picture him beating Tyson Fury. It's real hard for me to see anybody beating him unless Tyson Fury beats himself, and that's like the worst enemy Tyson Fury has is himself. Because like this guy could get distracted very easily. He could fall into a depression. He could fall into a bunch of issues, man, that plagued him after his win against Vladimir, and then probably even during portions of the entire Deontay Wilder saga. You know, because this man has looked out of shape. To be honest, he's never going to be body beautiful or anything like that, but he's always still getting the job done, in my opinion. Like this guy is always going to win most of these fights, even like on his worst day. Like he's one of them guys, man, that just like wakes up and decides, yeah, let me train for this fight and I should be ready like in 3 weeks and stuff. Like this guy is very dangerous. Like if he were still fighting like after Vladimir, like in 2016, 2017, all the way up until 2018, there wouldn't be no believe it or not, in my opinion, there wouldn't be no Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder talks like how we were in that time frame. Like Tyson Fury would have been a champion, undisputed champion, like for many years, man. But this guy, man, like has a lot of mental lapses, man, that he has to deal with all the time, and it's real hard to predict where he's gonna go, man. Like at one point, I used to think that Michael Hunter had a chance, and I still kind of do, but at this point, man, like Fury knows how to use his weight a lot. Like he knows how to put it down on everybody. And I think to myself, you know what? How hard is it going to be for a cruiserweight to actually get under Fury? And I understood it from like Vladimir. Like Vladimir was like a little bit more one dimensional than a Tyson. Well, Tyson Fury is not one dimensional at all, but like Vladimir knew how to put his weight on fighters, but Tyson Fury has that high IQ. Like he has that international training that he's stuck with the whole time, like throughout his entire career training with different types of trainers, in America, in the UK circuit. And like he's well schooled, like he was even there during the times of Emmanuel Stewart when he was still alive. And like at this point, it's real hard to see anybody beating him. But I could see him go on a hiatus and then like come back years down the road, for a big money fight. If AJ like doesn't win this fight against Usyk, like maybe against a Tony Yoka, depending on like if he becomes a champion or not, or even Joe Joyce. Joe Joyce is actually entertaining, and he's always getting knockouts in his fights and very big. Like he could take a punch, but Tyson Fury really needs like Anthony Joshua, for him like to be motivated to stick around because Anthony Joshua was the guy that's like one of his arch nemesis. Everybody talks about Deontay Wilder, but domestically, man, like they've always been competing with each other, because it's always night and day with them. Like Anthony Joshua is the guy that got the respect and fame like from the UK. I don't know like too much about what goes on over there. You guys could like correct me if I'm wrong cuz I live in the United States, but from what it seems like from my point of view, it looks like that Tyson Fury has always disliked AJ like for the fact that even like when Tyson Fury beat Vladimir, like he didn't really get the glory that Anthony Joshua got from beating him, even though like Tyson Fury beat Vladimir when he was on his run, his consecutive run to beating Joe Louis in title defenses and stuff at the heavyweight division. And that's why like Tyson Fury always held this resentment for AJ for years, like he always thought that as soon as he came back, he's gonna get back all the belts and just end the reign of Anthony Joshua himself. Like there was a lot of jealousy. I'm not gonna lie, even though I picked Tyson Fury against a lot of heavyweights and stuff, or I'm not trying to be disrespectful to him, but it seems like he was a little jealous, man, of Anthony Joshua because of all the fame, of all the looks and everything like that. You know what I mean? Like how who he was getting, but at this point, man, I think Tyson Fury has earned his respect, from all around the world, actually, because everybody respects him here in the United States, especially after last night. Even Deontay Wilder got his respect, like just for staying in there and making a good account of himself, physically. But I thought that he was getting outscored most of the rounds, but it was still an entertaining fight at the end of the day. So Usyk has a great fight IQ as well. Coming from Papachenko's school, I think he has a good chance to beat Tyson Fury using speed, angles, and footwork. That's the thing too. Like Usyk might have the best chance, because he has sparred with Vladimir, so that's a good basis for him to deal with a guy like Tyson Fury that loves to put his size on everybody. And I'm wondering how it would happen, like would Usyk use his pivots just to get away, like from Tyson Fury using his elbow just to put his weight on Usyk's back, kind of similar to how Vladimir would put his elbow and weight on David Hayes' back when they fought back in like what 2010, like almost 10 years ago, believe it or not. Man, that's how much time flies by, you know what I mean? So Usyk, I could see him giving Fury some problems, but at the same time, man, Fury knows like how to use his length too, like he knows how to use his jab. He knows how to step back, fight on the back foot. We might actually see the return of a more athletic Fury. More, I'm not saying that he's gonna look like how he did like before the Vladimir fight or even during the Vladimir fight, but we're gonna see some Tyson Fury that lost a lot of weight, like somewhere around the 240, 250 type of range, maybe 250, 260. I don't want to like go like too deep into like his weight cuts or anything because I think for a guy like Usyk, I think he would be way too heavy. Uh, how do you say it? Like way too much. Like he would have enough adequate weight to put on Usyk, even at like 260, 250 something, even 240 something, which is something that I thought AJ would use against Usyk because I really want to see how Usyk deals with a guy just leaning on him because Anthony Joshua had a chance to do that, but Anthony Joshua didn't want to get hit or countered. He was like befuddled by the volume of Usyk, So that's what I think about it. Did you see Usyk's stable of sparring partners that helped him prepare for the AJ fight? They were beasts. They make AJ look small. Oh, no, man, I didn't see it, but I would actually take a look at that. But just based on the fact that he had experience from that Vladimir sparring and even the sparring partners that you're telling me about, that means that it makes me wonder how close this Fury fight would be. But I'm not too sure, because Fury, I've always picked Fury in a lot of fights. It's real hard for me to see like Fury in a predicament where like he doesn't really calculate, where he miscalculates something, besides maybe the first Wilder fight. But he actually did a lot better than people expected. And I actually picked him in that first fight with Deontay Wilder. Fury's hold on. But yeah, man, like the thing is, Tyson Fury, I would love to see him unified with Usyk, but something tells me that he's just waiting for Joshua to win. And I at some point, at the same time, I'm kind of hoping Joshua would win, but I don't see it. I just don't see it at all because like Usyk is a very high IQ, like you've said before too yourself. To me, Usyk is actually top three of the biggest IQs in boxing, of the highest IQs in boxing. Actually, I've said it before and I'll say it again. It's with Canelo, it's with Terrence Crawford, and you got Usyk as well. Because this guy, cruiserweights, man, they have the best of both worlds. They get the best sparring ever. Like they spar the biggest guys in the entire sport, and borderline they can actually they're actually at the borderline of the divisions where they could actually spar with lighter weights. You know what I mean? They could spar with guys like Artur Beterbiev, Dmitry Bivol, high IQ fighters like that, man. And that's when they could get like schoolings, tips, pointers, and they could implement it on the bigger guys. So that's what makes them very dangerous. They got the athleticism, they got the speed, as long as they know how to maneuver themselves, like how they can position themselves and not to waste so much energy. It all depends on their weight management. Some some of the cruiserweights stay like around the 220 something range, or even the 210s, or even low 200s. But for this fight against Tyson Fury, to me, Usyk really needs to work on his pivots. And Tyson Fury really needs to have some type of like how Richard Dwyer likes to say, ring coverage with his length, with his reach, with his jab. That's really all Tyson Fury needs to do. But at the same time, man, like Tyson Fury also needs to have some type of remote footwork to actually cut off the ring from Usyk, because there's going to be a time where he has to cut off the ring from Usyk or try to nullify his volume and stuff. So um it is going to be interesting coming forward, with the heavyweights and stuff, because we finally got the closer we needed. It ended in a knockout. I wouldn't have cared if Wilder knocked out Fury, but um, I'm just glad that this whole saga is over. We could finally move on. And I still want to, like I've said before, I still want to see Wilder in these big fights, whether it be against AJ, Ruiz, um, Joe Joyce, the one that I want to see, because styles make fights, and stylistically, that's going to be the heavyweight fight. To me, that's going to mirror a classic, at least in my opinion. But um, Tyson Fury, it all depends on Tyson Fury, man. Like we really got to look at this AJ versus Usyk fight with a close microscope now, because anything could happen. Joshua could end up making an adjustment for all we know, because we're talking about an Olympic gold medalist and two Olympic gold medalists actually in both of these guys. So I don't know, man. Like it's gonna be tough to see anybody match Usyk, like in terms of his boxing IQ. And the closest person that could actually come to that is Tyson Fury. But Tyson Fury, man, like he's just a very big guy, like it's not really that much of a gap. I mean, it's not really that close as I thought it was. It's just a size disparity, between him and Usyk that makes it very hard for Usyk to deal with, because I've seen Usyk with Anthony Joshua dealing with the hide and reach, but I haven't seen him like deal with like a hide and reach and dog of Tyson Fury, that's willing to get in there and put on the weight on somebody, because at this point, Tyson Fury has tremendous confidence, especially facing like one of the biggest punchers of the modern day. Like it's really gonna be tough to see like somebody walk down, or how do you put it, try to fend off Fury, you know what I mean? So Tyson Fury, man, like versus Usyk, that's a good fight. Tyson Fury versus even Dillian White versus Otto Walling. hmm if Dillian White wins, I don't see White beating Tyson Fury unless Tyson Fury was off like real off that day. You know what I mean? So I think Tyson Fury does really need to be prepared for a guy like Dillian White, you know, because Dillian White does have a nasty left hook, and he can knock out anybody at any time. You know, I tried to pick Joseph Parker against him. I tried to pick who else did I try to pick against Dillian White? Oscar Rivas. That ended horribly. You know, I mean that ended in a decision, but you know, like Dillian White, man, has respectable power. He's uh gone through a lot, you know, with all these contenders, even avenged his loss against Povetkin, you know, after getting smooth knocked out in that first fight. But in my opinion, man, I think the harder fight for Tyson Fury technically would be Otto Wallin from him and Dillian White because he's already faced Tyson Fury before. And I think Otto Wallin has given Tyson Fury a lot more problems from a technical standpoint and a physical standpoint, believe it or not. Well, besides, of course, the knockdowns from Deontay Wilder, than Deontay Wilder himself. Because remember, he actually gave Tyson Fury that big cut on his eye. And imagine if he opens that cut again, you know, like from a jab and like he just aims for it, you know. I understand that Tyson Fury has recovered from it. It's been like a couple years now. And Deontay Wilder didn't even hit him in that same spot to the point where like it would actually burst open like how I thought it would in the second fight. But Deontay Wilder is like not really as coordinated, or like he's not really that weary of like stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like tricks of the trade. Because I saw even Otto Walden like in that fight with Tyson Fury trying to open that cut every time that every time that the referee broke up the fight. You know, like from the clenches, and Otto Walden would just stick his hand out and try to move around the cut. You know, so that's still a pretty dangerous fight for Tyson Fury. But anybody that could catch him like on an off day has a big chance against him. But if Tyson Fury was like a lot more dedicated, a lot more focused, you know, almost like a Floyd Mayweather type of deal, man, I don't think anybody could beat him. But Tyson Fury, man, like this guy, he's always not in the best shape, but he always gets the job done, and he makes sure it's very convincing. So, um, that's my take on it. Let me know what y'all think. Appreciate y'all stopping by. For those that are viewing it right now, shout out to Monkey Kung Fu. Shout out to anybody that passed by right now. I'm about to start eating right now and start working out. I don't want to, you know, lose my focus or anything like that, you know. So it's gonna get exciting from here on out. We got Canelo Plant coming up. We got Terrence Crawford versus Sean Porter. I'm gonna be doing my, you know, live streams on that as well, like detailing my breakdowns and stuff like that. So appreciate y'all stopping by. Take care of y'all, especially in these times. Peace.